Hello everyone, welcome to the Azure DevOps Bootcamp. So this is Lakshit Pant. It's the day 5 of Azure DevOps Bootcamp. So far we have covered a range of topics in which we have covered Azure repos, we have YAML pipelines, we have already covered, and there are multiple topics. Yesterday, Naveen sir has given some insights about serverless functions to automate DevOps and pipeline as a code with YAML in Azure DevOps and also source code management with Azure DevOps. So today we'll be speaking about IAC with Azure Resource Manager, the ARM template specifically, and for the same we have Mubin here. He's a senior DevOps cloud engineer having incredible experience of community as well as in the DevOps field. He's a senior DevOps and cloud engineer at IFI Technologies, and he'll be uh, giving you the insights how does the IAC really works with Azure Resource Manager, and it will be a hands-on session for you all. And for the shake I'm just sharing a repo link. Then the templates that Mubin will be using are in the chat right now, so you can access all these ARM templates from this repository link. Okay, so this is the repository link that I've already shared in the comment section. So please use this repo link for whatever he used to. If you want to follow him along with the session, you can use this repo link, whatever he's doing. So I hope that is enough for me to talk. So thank you. And now I'll quickly pass on this stage to Mubin. Over to you, Mubin. You are in mute. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Lakshit. So I've shared my screen as okay, my screen is visible. Right? Okay.
Yeah, I see.
So hello everyone. Welcome to day 5 of DevOps Bootcamp. I'm your host for today. So before starting with the presentation, I would just give you a quick intro. So I am Mubin Girach, a senior DevOps engineer and a tech enthusiast. You can connect me on LinkedIn. My name on LinkedIn is Mohammed Mubin Girach. So before starting with the agenda of this session, I will just tell you all a quick story. So imagine a world where building a house was as simple as snapping together the Lego bricks. There are no blueprints, there are no construction crews, nothing. Just a kind of seamless assembly of interconnected blocks that we have. Well, in the world of cloud computing, that dream is becoming a reality through powerful tool which is called as ARM templates, which we are going to cover right now in this particular session. So let me just take you back to the to a kind of scenario where there is a brilliant developer whose name is Alex, who himself found he found himself into a kind of daunting task or a kind of difficult task, and his company decided to migrate the complete infrastructure to cloud, like you can say a kind of on premises to cloud migration. So it was a kind of ambitious move, but it also promised a kind of greater scalability, cost efficiency, and flexibility. But Alex was a kind of confused by seeing the complexities of deploying and managing resources on cloud, because Alex was a kind of on-prem guy. He has no knowledge about cloud and things, so he was very much confused, like how will I deploy and manage resources on cloud. So he was basically seeing a lot of challenges while all this planning process was going on. So like many of us, Alex also began his cloud journey by manually provisioning the resources, because he was an on-prem guy. He had no knowledge about cloud, so he started his cloud journey by manually provisioning all the resources one by one. You can say, you can relate it by saying that constructing a house brick by brick and spending hours by uh, deciphering the settings, wrestling with dependencies, and many other things. And it was a very frustrating process, because you have to wake up on daily basis, you have to do a similar task on daily basis, so it becomes very much frustrating for anybody. So then one day what happened is, Alex stumbled upon the ARM templates. By magic, he stumbled upon the ARM templates. And these templates were like, the architects of the cloud world, and providing him with a kind of blueprint for the seamless assembly of resources. With a stroke of genius, then Alex realized that he could define the desired state of his infrastructure using simple and declarative JSON syntax. So rather than just provisioning the resources on daily basis again and again, doing the same thing, facing the errors and fixing the errors, he just found a kind of tool, a powerful tool, through which he can just write some code and use that code to deploy this similar kind of thing again and again on daily basis with a click of a button. Then Alex shared his discovery with his team. They were marveled at the possibilities. So no longer there were any kind of foundations to manual provisioning. They could now just automate the deployment, saving time, reducing errors, and accelerating their cloud journey. So, my friends, today we have also gathered here to explore the wonders of ARM templates. Just like Alex and his team, we too will unlock the potential of cloud and building and scaling our infrastructure with ease. So, fasten your seatbelts and get ready to embark on the exciting journey together. So, now, having said that, this is the agenda for the session. What is IAC? Why is IAC? And how to implement IAC. Basically, we would be covering the three W's. So now coming on to the first point of the agenda, like what is infrastructure as a code? So you can see with this short video over here, wherein a person is writing some code, and then that particular code is basically going into an ISC platform, and then the cloud service, the infrastructure is basically getting deployed, and it is also a kind of declarative approach, you can say. So over here, I will just quickly brief you all on what exactly is declarative approach. So you can just assume that there are two kind of approaches. One is imperative approach. Just ignore my writing; it's very bad, I know. And the second one is a kind of declarative approach. So what happens in imperative approaches, like you have to define each and everything. Like, okay, what is the exact thing that you want to achieve and how it has to be achieved. So that becomes a very much tedious task for anybody. But on the other hand, if we talk about declarative, let's say you just want to provision a virtual machine, and you just write that particular code. Okay, I just want the virtual machine, and behind the curtains, it is that particular that is the power of the tool, that it actually puts in its intellect, and then it actually provisions whatever is the desired thing which you have mentioned in the code. So that reduces the kind of efforts an engineer has to put in by just defining what is to be achieved and not defining how it has to be achieved. So that is a kind of quick you can say difference between imperative and a declarative approach. So this ARM template basically follows a kind of declarative approach. Then the third a kind of point or a kind of definition, you can say, is it is a kind of reusable template. So if you just go through the link which is shared in the chat box, you will see that a kind of similar JSON objects are being repeated in each and every template. So that basically makes it a kind of reusable template. So just correlating with the story which I right now told, it's basically like you have to create a set of resources on daily basis. So instead of just creating those set of resources manually again and again, you have a kind of reusable template, wherein you just put that particular reusable template onto the ISC platform or to the cloud platform, and you are there, like you have your resources created. So that makes it more reliable. ISC is kind of consistent. It actually makes you work consistent, and it is also reliable as well. Because if you do something on daily basis manual, it actually introduces kind of a manual error. Might be like if you are deploying something, the name convention might go upside down. There might not be kind of consistency. So that actually hampers your work. And if you use IAC, it actually makes your work more efficient. Now coming on to the third slide, the third W that we are going to cover is how to implement IAC. So as you can see over here in this picture that there are multiple tools available for IAC. We have Chef, we have Terraform, we have Puppet, we have Ansible. So there are lots of tools available for ISE. But in this particular session, we would be going with Azure Resource Manager, which is also called as ARM template. So stay tuned. We will be covering the ARM template part over here in this session. So over here, again, the question comes like why to use ARM template, because there are other, tools available or other platforms also available. So what happens is that it makes the deployment faster and more repeatable, which I actually explained in the previous slides. Like we create reusable templates and which makes the deployments faster and more repeatable. The second point is that it improves consistency by providing a kind of common language. So what this point actually means, or what it tries to explain, is that if you are having a team of 5 people, let's say, and you all are want to provision something or the other, like you are just segregating the work. Like for example, there is one member called person A who looks after provisioning of the virtual machine. There is a person B who looks after the networking part. So what happens is, like, you have to maintain, you need to have a kind of consistency throughout whatever infrastructure that you are creating. So these templates provide you with that particular feature, you can say, or a kind of upper hand, that you are following the same kind of name convention for all the resources, and thereby maintain a kind of consistency. Then you have this particular point wherein you can just deploy multiple resources and map their dependencies. Like over here, what happens is, like, in a cloud environment, you basically have multiple resources which are interdependent. So many a time what happens is, like, if you are provisioning resource A which is dependent on resource B, so if you are doing it manually, you might face some kind of issues, like you might provision a resource B first wherein it has a dependency with resource A. So that particular thing might introduce manual errors, and also you might have to destroy the whole environment and create it again. So if you use ARM template, it actually eliminates those kinds of problems. So that is again, the same point, that it reduces manual and error prone tasks. And the last point is, if you have a kind of big infrastructure which is to be provisioned, so in that scenario, you can just link multiple templates and you can create your whole landing zone, or you can say a big infrastructure on cloud. So that covers, the basic thing about why ARM templates, why IAC basically, and how to implement IAC. We will be, deep diving upon how to implement ARM template in precise. So basically, ARM template is a kind of JSON structure, and it has a kind of key value pairs. So what happens over here in JSON is, I will just quickly use this one. So over here in JSON, what you have is, you have a kind of key value pairs. You have a key, you have a value. Then again, you have a key, you have a value for it. So this is, a kind of uh, process, or you can say a kind of structure which is being followed. The only difference is it has some kind of curly braces over here, and inside this it is a kind of similar structure. Just like in the previous session, you might have got a small gist about the YML. So it is similar to that only, but it has some kind of brackets. It's all about brackets in JSON. So this is what a structure would look like in ARM templates that we would be seeing further in this session. So having said that, I will just quickly switch back to the PPT over here. So this is the kind of sections, or you can say the kind of keys that would be there. This is a kind of skeleton which would be maintained for an ARM template, wherein we would be having the parameters, the variables, the functions, the resources, outputs. And this is exactly the structure. You will be having a schema, a content version, API profile, parameters, variables. This is a kind of a raw ARM template, you can say. And later on, according to the requirement that we have, we would be filling out the values for these keys. So that is about the structure, and that ends my slide. We would be moving ahead with some kind of hands-on thing to just understand more about ARM template. If anybody has some kind of queries up till here, they can just post it in chat, and I would be addressing the same.
So there are no queries yet. We'll update you as soon as there will be any.
Okay. If I'm going too fast, you can just inform me. Okay. This is done. Then let me just quickly. Okay. So I'm using Visual Studio Code over here. You can say this is the ID which I'm using over here. Okay. Lakshit, my screen is visible, right?
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah, it would be great if you can just zoom in a little bit so that it can be much more easier to. Yeah, perfect.
Now it's fine, right? Okay, okay. So now we would be starting with the actual technical session over here. That was just the theoretical part to give you a overview of what is ARM template, what is IACN, how it could be useful for any kind of organization or even for an individual. So I have a couple of templates over here that I would be covering in this session. The link for the same is already provided in the chat. You can just, if you want to follow it simultaneously, you can do that as well. So this is my first template. Okay. And as I already showed you this structure over here, this structure, which has the schema, the content version, API profile, and all those stuff, you will see it is a kind of similar one. It is just that I have added something in the resources over here. Okay. And a easy way out, I would say, you don't have to remember all these things, uh, because every time you will have a lot of infrastructure which is to be provisioned, and just remembering all these things and writing it is not a good approach. So we have some kind of easy way out for this in Visual Studio Code. You can just install this Visual Studio Code. You will get some links on Google. If you just type in Visual Studio Code, so okay, it's coming up. I have this first link over here. I just pasted it in the chat. So you can just download this Visual Studio Code from this link, and you can just download it for Windows or for any other operating system. And once that is installed, basically you just have to go to this particular icon over here, which is for the extensions, and you just have to search for something as ARM template. Okay, so ARM template is basically referring to Azure Resource Manager over here, and this is by Microsoft. So you can just install it, and once you install it, you will be getting this kind of option to disable or uninstall, through which you can verify that okay, this particular extension has been installed over here. So once this is installed, this will basically assist you in a way that whenever you want to write some kind of code over here to provision something, so you can just do it easily. Like for example, I will just write demo.json. So as these particular JSON format, so you have to name it accordingly with a .json extension. What you call structure over here, you just have to type in this particular thing ARM, and it will just prompt you with a suggestion that okay, you this Visual Studio Code will say something like okay, I understand that you want to create a kind of Azure Resource Manager template. So it is giving you a suggestion, and once you click on it, you see you get a structure over here. So you don't have to remember this, as I said. This is all a kind of easy way. You can go with this approach by installing the extra Azure template, And once you have installed that, you just have to just type in this particular thing, which is ARM, and it will give you a suggestion that okay, you want to create ARM template. I have a structure ready for it, and there you go with the complete structure. Then the resources part. So what happens is that whenever you provision something on Azure, so those are services which are provided by the cloud. Okay, so if I just quickly show you this particular thing, I have my structure over here. This is the resources tab which I have over here on the left. And if I just show you these resources, resource which is getting provision on the top of Azure. So if you see over here, I have multiple services which are provisioned over here. I have my storage account, I have my public IP, I have my virtual machine, and there are a lot of resources. So these same resources multiple things from the portal. What we can do is we can just write the same thing over here into the resources block. But again, you might be having a question that okay, how should I write it? So with that particular extension which I told just now to install, it has that capability to just create that particular result. So you just have to write something like okay, it's storage. Okay, so now I will just write storage. So you see over here, I'm getting multiple options in fact. So these are all the suggestions. You just have to type a word, or you can just type in 3 words for better suggestions, and you get the whole structure over here again. Just like you got it for this particular. Okay. So this is how you account for previous, and you have all these over here for the storage account. And if I just quickly go to Azure portal, I will just show you a kind of correlation over here. Okay, it's loading. Let me switch off my camera because I think there is some network issue. Lakshit, my screen is visible for you.
Yeah, it's visible. It's visible. Okay. There seems like some internet lag, but the screen is visible. I'm sorry, what?
Hello.
Yes, Mubin. Yes.
Uh, I think you guys lost me for a minute or two.
Yeah, yeah. Your internet seems like it looks like your internet is a bit slow.
Hello.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, I think there is some network issue from my end. Okay, now is it proper, Lakshit, or still there is some kind of latency?
No, no, it's perfect now. It's perfect. Please go
Okay,
ahead.
yeah. So I was just explaining something about the storage account. So I just generated a storage account ARM template over here using the same extension assistance. And now we would be seeing how the same thing is, provisioned using the Azure portal basically. So if I just go to Azure portal and I just choose to select a storage account over here. Okay. Yeah, so I will just select this option of creating a storage account, and it will just give me a kind of form, you can say, wherein I have to fill out all the required details according to my requirements. Okay. So you have your subscription over here. Okay. Then you have your Azure resource group. Okay. So I will just create new resource group with, let's say, name as a ARM demo. Before that, I will just explain you the hierarchy, like what is the hierarchy in Azure portal. So you will get a basic understanding of it as well. Okay. So you have your Azure. Okay, so this is basically the hierarchy wherein you have your Azure portal. Then you can just ignore this management group as of now. This is there basically, but for a better understanding, you can just assume there is a tenant. Okay. And then inside the tenant, you have your subscriptions. And inside the subscription, you have your resource group. Then you have your resources. So this is basically the hierarchy over here. And the same could be seen over here onto my Azure portal. If I just show you this particular thing, like I have my directory over here. Uh, yeah, I have my directory over here. You can see this is the directory which I am having. POC tenant is the directory name, and inside that directory I have my subscription over here. If I just quickly show you this thing, I have my subscription over here, and inside my subscription I have multiple resource groups. So if you see over here, I have my multiple resource groups, and inside multiple resource groups, I would be having the resources over here. You see, this is the resource. So basically, it follows this hierarchy. You have your Azure portal, you have your tenant, then you have a tenant or directory, you can say. Then you have your subscription, then resource group, and then resources. So back to the story where we were creating the storage account. So I have my subscription, then I'm creating a resource group, then this is a kind of form which I'm getting to create a storage account. So first is the storage account name. Basically, for identification purposes, you need to give a storage account name. Like every person has a name, the you can say every resource also has to be given a name. Then if we correlate it with the structure over here, also we have to define the name. It's a kind of one-to-one mapping that we are doing. We are just having the storage account name, then we are having the region over here. The similar thing is over here as well. It is basically we have region over there, we have location over here. So it's like easy English, which can be understood. Then you have performance over here, you have redundancy over here, right? So you have your skew over here, and then these all things can be added. So it's a kind of you can say one-to-one comparison that you just follow over here. With Azure portal, you just have to fill out these details, and with this arm template you are just defining it in a code, so that every time you don't have to open Azure portal, fill out these details, and then wait for your resource to get provision. Instead, you just make this arm template, and whenever you have a requirement of provisioning and storage account, you just use this template and you provision your complete infrastructure. So I will be just using the template 1 over here, because this particular thing is not yet uploaded onto the repository, wherein I would be just copy pasting the whole template, and I would be going on to my Azure portal, and I will just search for, if you just type in ARM, you will get an option of deploying a custom template over here. You just have to select that particular option of deploying a custom template. So once you select that particular option of deploying a custom template, you will get an interface just like this. So you just have to select, you have a common template here, which are also called as a kind of quick start templates, but I already have a template with me. So I would be using that particular template over here. I will just paste it over here. So now you see, you are getting a preview basically, which says that, okay, you have given this template. This template would be creating a storage account with this particular name. So I will just click on save. And once I click on save, it will again ask me, kind of reconfirmation that, okay, if you want to deploy a resource, just tell me which resource group should I use. So I would be using a new resource group, which is ARM demo. I will click on OK. Then the region. So not to just to get a better understanding, there are two different aspects over here. You are having your uh, region over here. So you might be thinking that we already have a region specified. So why is it asking? So let me just clarify this point. This region is for your resource group. Every particular resource that you just provision on cloud, whether it be resource group or anything, will require you to specify the region. So over here, this region is what I'm specifying is for the resource group. Then I will just click on review and create, and then this is validating. So basically what happens is, many a time people don't use the extension. They just write this particular code manually, according to whatever they remember, and they get something like this. Okay, over here I am getting some kind of error that, okay, the storage account name is already taken. So here comes a scenario wherein you can just say that every resource that you are creating should be unique in nature. The name should be basically unique. So as you saw, we got an error that, okay, this is already taken. So I will just add some more numbers over here to make it unique, and then I will just select this once again, and I will select review and create. So now you saw validation pass, but earlier we were getting some kind of error. So what happens in this particular phase is that if you are making some kind of mistake over here, and your core basically, that particular mistake that we made right now, it was not intentional, right? It was something like, it was not related to syntax, it was related to the name. So in this scenario, you can say that, there are two phases. One is you make your syntax, some errors are there in the syntax, so that particular thing is covered with the extension that you have installed in the id. But if you have something related to Azure, you would be able to see those errors once you just go to this custom deployment service and you try to deploy something, and then you will get some errors if there are. If not, then you will see this green message saying validation passed, and then I will click on create. So this will now deploy a storage account for me. So storage account is basically, you can say, for a layman understanding, it's a kind of hard disk with variety of services provided within that particular hard disk. Or if you are familiar with AWS, I would say it is a kind of S3 bucket with more functionalities in it. That is what storage account is. So this is getting deployed. Okay, it has now deployed, or you can say it has now the template that we were using has provisioned a storage account for us. And you see there are multiple things over here. These are basically the offerings inside the storage account. You have your containers, you have your file shares, you have your queues, you have your tables. So you have basically four services within the storage account. And if you just go to overview, and if you just compare it with your ARM template which you used for this particular provisioning of storage account, so you will see the same parameters that you had specified are being reflected over here. Like you have your location, which is reflecting over here, which is North Europe. Then you have your this one which we recently modified. Then you have your account type, and all these stuff, basically is getting provision according to the parameters that you have specified over here. So that covers the first demo. Now we will just deep dive a bit. So you might be having a question that, okay, we saw the name thing over here, uh, and we already selected the storage account service. So what is this API version? So there comes a kind of interesting part. So we will just understand this part over here. So what happens when you use an ARM template is that you have your ARM template, and then you have your API version within that. Okay. So one way out is just going to Azure portal and just provisioning all the resources from the GUI. The second approach that we saw was using the ARM template. So what happens is that behind the curtain, it is a kind of API call which is being made. Okay, that template is nothing but a kind of API call, or you can say a kind of API request with all these attributes in it. Okay, this is the API version. Basically, you can say kind of predefined structure which is encoded behind this version, so that it can verify, okay, this is the version, it accepts only these parameters for storage account and nothing apart from that. So this is how a kind of API call is made, and we have the API version specified, so that Azure understands, okay, this is the API version, and these are the properties which are associated with the API version. And then you just define all the properties like the name, the performance, the SKU, the tier, and all those stuff. And then you make a API call from the Azure portal, and once that API call is being received by Azure, it basically deploys your resources. So this is how this particular thing works behind the curtain. So now I hope it is clear till now. If you guys have any doubt, you can just put in the chat, and then we can proceed ahead accordingly. There are no queries, Lakshit.
No, Mubin, not right now. Not right now. We don't have anyone.
I hope they are getting, or there are two scenarios when there is no response. Either they get it or they don't get anything.
Not sure, but there seems like there is no query till yet. And I hope that's the positive one. Seems like.
Okay, no issues.
Sure.
So, yeah, I'm proceeding with the second one. So, I'm basically taking a different approach over here to make you all understand about ARM template. So, as I already told, there are different assistance-based extension which are available to help you with just defining all the resources over here, basically defining or helping you to write the code for the resources. But ultimately, if you just work on any project, there are kind of complexities wherein you have to customize this whole template so that it suffices the requirement of the end customer. So this approach will basically help you to understand that particular aspect of it. So now, what we saw earlier was, just defining the name and just defining all these stuff over here. But what if the scenario is something like, I just don't have to provision one storage account. Okay, I have to, let's say, provision three storage accounts. So either one possibility is that I just repeat this block three times and then wait for some kind of errors on Azure portal. But ultimate motto, as I said, I just explained in my presentation, was to reduce the manual errors and to improve the complete process and to be efficient. So this particular process over here of just repeating this one block three times will not make the code efficient, right? Behind the curtain, you can say that it will just increase the time which will be taken to evaluate the complete code. So if you are having let's say you are having 100 lines of code over here in the ARM template, a kind of, you can say, 10 seconds will be required to evaluate the same code by Azure. Okay, because Azure, as you just now saw, that it evaluates the whole code and then it says, okay, the validation is failed or it has passed, right? So there are two possibilities of that particular thing. So that happens after it has evaluated the complete code. But if you just write the same code, let's say in 10 lines, the amount of time will reduce to 1 second, right? So it is basically improving the complete process, and it is making the whole process more efficient. So we would be focusing on improving the whole process and making it more efficient, and thereby just not writing 100 lines of code. You would be writing just three extra lines over here, which is for copying the same resources three times. Okay, so we have something called we have a lot of, you can say, logical things in ARM template, just like you do in your Python or any other you can say scripting language or programming language, that you define the logic over here and you make your code more optimized. So in the similar manner, we have something called as copy over here. So as of now, you can just understand that copy is just for copying something or copying the resources multiple times. Okay, so it basically, you can relate it as a loop also, that iterates this whole thing three times, or the number of times you define over here in the count part. Okay, so I will just explain this particular part over here. So as I told, as we just now observe something like we got a validation error, and that validation error was something because this particular account name was already taken. And as I told you that every other resource which is being provisioned on cloud has to have a kind of unique name. Okay, so if we are just reiterating the whole block three times, don't you think that it will just have the same name? Like it will create the storage account for the first time with this name, but when it creates the storage account for the second time while reiterating this whole block, it will basically pick up the same name. So which will give us a kind of error that okay, this particular storage account was already created and you are trying to create a storage account with the same name, so this particular thing will break. So in order to avoid the same thing, what we are doing is we are concatenating something. So concatenation process, I hope you might be aware of it, but I will just explain it to you. Like you have your something like okay, I will just erase this part. You have something like app storage 1 2 3 4. So in the first iteration you will have this name picked up, but when it iterates for the second time, we don't want the same name to be there again, because it will throw some kind of error. So what we are doing is we are just concatenating something over here. Like this thing will be there for sure. Okay, let's say this is something like a, and we are just adding something to its prefix, like 1 plus a, 2 plus a, 3 plus a, so that the name basically is unique and it's not repeating, and thereby we are avoiding some kind of errors over here. So what will happen over here, we are having a count of 3 over here. Okay, so if you are by chance aware of the array thing over here, so what happens in array is like uh, just explain this part. So what happens in array is like you have your elements over here, like a b c. Okay, this is a kind of, you can say, an array. You are having three variables like a b c. So in array what happens is like there is a kind of index, which is, just like you have in any other textbook, you have some kind of index. So for example, if you are reading some kind of storybook and you want to go to the conclusion directly, which is c, so you just open some kind of page number, let's say 138, and you just read the conclusion. Or let's say you just want to go to some you want to go to some page which is in between, so you just pick up that page and you go over there. Okay, so let's say 137. So this is how this particular array is also formed within an array. But there is slight twist over here. Instead of these elements having the index number as 1 2 3, it starts with 0. You have 0 1 2 and likewise. So if over here, if I go and if I just explain you this part, that what will happen over here. So first part is concatenation, as I said, but what is to be concatenated? Like this is first variable and this is the second variable, and we want to concatenate these both things together. So we are just using the index of this copy. So what will happen is that it is basically a kind of array, you can say, of which we are just using the index. So it is basically iterating for 3 times. So, and we are using the index of it. So for the first time, it will use 0 as the prefix, and then the name of the storage account, which is app storage something. Then it will use 1 and then app storage something. Likewise, it will use 2 and then app storage something. So that ensures that we are having different unique names over here, and we are copying, or we are just provisioning the same storage account with same configuration for 3 times. I will just copy this thing and I will just paste it over here. I will just and one more thing is there, which is like if you are using some kind of service again and again, so you will get that you will just get that particular process, or sorry, that particular service over here in the tab of recently used services. So that basically just eliminates that kind of time that you are wasting by just searching for that service again, clicking on it. Instead, you can just use this recent Azure services, and you can just again follow the same process and just paste the same code over it. So that will basically help you to create 3 resources over here. The three same type of resources, it's the storage account name with unique names. So it's loading. I will just select the same resource group, same region, and then review and create. So now validation is happening. And if there are any kind of problems over here, so you will get some kind of errors. Okay, I got some error. Okay, it's saying that this particular account name is already there in place. So what we will do is we'll just add something more in the concatenation part. Let's say we will just add arm over here. So now there are three things which are getting concatenated. One is arm, the second is the index of this copy loop, and then there is this storage account name. So now let's see what happens next. Again, select the resource group. Basically, it's asking for the resource group as per the hierarchy, which I just now explained, that you have your subscription, then you have your resource group, and within that, you have your resources. So basically, it is asking for the resource group for that purpose so that it can just provision the resource in a proper resource group. So now you see the validation has passed, and now I will just click on create so that we just create three storage account with unique names. So now deployment is in progress. Okay, deployment has completed. I will just go to the resource group, and okay, so if I just refresh it quickly. Okay, so one old resource would be there, which we created using the very first template. And now you see you have got three storage accounts, and you are having the same name convention that you specified, which was having okay, I just add over here, which was having something like this, like arm in the prefix, then you will be having the copy index and then this name. So it is following the same structure over here. Arm, then the index, which was following the array over here, 0, 1, 2, and then the name of the storage account. So this is, how you can just customize the predefined block of code over here according to the requirement, with the ultimate goal of reducing the efforts. Because if it had been something like, okay, if you are taking the same kind of efforts of that you are taking to just deploy the resources by manually going through the Azure portal. So in this scenario, we just had to create three different storage account, and we just hardly used 5 to 10 minutes to create this whole storage account. And if it had been something like you had no arm template and you had to go to Azure portal and create it for three times, it would have taken 3x of the time that we took right now. And let's assume that you had to create this storage account on daily basis, because there are scenarios wherein you just deploy something which is costing you too much, so you just have to delete these resources on day end, and then you just have to provision it again the next day. So in that scenarios, this arm template is what will be helping you. So you just have to write it once. It might take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but you would be relieved for the next 15 days. You just have to pick up the code, copy paste it, and you are done with your complete thing. Okay, so this is a kind of efficiency which is bought by uh, ARM templates basically, and you can just make your processes or make your things much more efficient. Okay, then we have multiple templates. Due to time limitations, I would be just covering something about parameters and variables. So what happens over here is so you have two things and So in variables, you just define some kind of variable, let's say variable A, and you write some value for it. Like I will write something like storage account. And let's say I will have some variable B wherein I will write some VM. Okay, so basically I am providing key, and there is a value which is, the structure what JSON follows, and then I would be later on using this predefined variables into my ARM template. Okay, so this is just a kind of cherry on the cake. Like you already specified, I already showed you how you can be efficient by writing this whole thing, provide just writing your whole infrastructure as a code. And then there are optimizations over that particular code as well. Like you just have to use this particular storage thing again and again. You just have to write it, let's say, for 10 times. So instead of writing it for 10 times, what you will do, you will just store this as a variable, and then you will be using that variable for 10 times. So you just don't have to write this whole thing again and again. And might be there are scenarios like if you are writing the storage thing again and again, there are scenarios like you will miss E sometimes, you will just miss S sometimes. So that might lead to an error. And if you are if there are some kind of manual errors, it might just disrupt your whole infrastructure, because each and every resources are interconnected, or they are integrated. And then there is something called as parameters. What happens in parameters is like you define or you ask for some kind of input from the user. Like if I just talk about the same scenario, you will say there is a parameter A, and you will ask the user, okay, you give me an input, like what should be the value of A. And then further you use the same parameter in your whole ARM template. So this is basically the scenario over here. And I will be just showing you this particular thing uh, in ARM template over here. So okay, I just create one new ARM template, or just define it over here itself. So what happens in variable is that I will be having a variable over here. This is how you define your variable. And then you write something like ARM demo 1 SDG. Okay. And once you have defined this particular thing over here, and then what you do is, like, instead of writing this whole thing again and again, you will just write something like, okay, just a minute, you will just write something like variables, and then you will use this a variable over here. Okay. So basically you are calling out this particular variable over here, and I don't need this part, so I will just remove this one, and just have to close this particular bracket. Okay, so if I don't close some bracket, you will get this red error. So what you have to do, it's the easy way out. You just have to map the brackets, like number of open brackets with the number of closed brackets. So I see there is one unclosed bracket. So I will just close it, and I will just copy this whole code, and I will paste it into the same service which is deploying a custom template over here. Just over here. And let's see if there are some kind of validations error. Okay, I will just choose this resource group. Let's see if there are any errors. Okay, there is some error. Okay. Okay, it's saying that okay, we just have to use the numbers. We cannot use hyphens or something. So what I will do, I will just make a change over here. I will add some more variables over here. So basically, this is not the way how you define the name of the resources. You have to follow some kind of convention, like what is the resource type, what is the environment of it, and then something related to your project or something like that is the name convention which Microsoft recommends. So you have to follow that. Otherwise, somewhere down the line, like after you create the resources, a week down the line, you will just get confused, like, okay, had I created this resource? So just to avoid that particular confusion, you have to follow some kind of name convention. So now you saw the validation has passed, and now it would be using this particular thing over here. This is the variable which I have used, and I have referenced this variable in the name key over here. So now let's see, I will just click on create. So now the resource is getting provisioned over here. Okay. So now this has got provision. And you see, this is the same name over here as the storage account name, and it has utilized the variable over here. This is the variable which we had specified. So this is how, the variable works. And now coming on to the parameters part over here, it's, the similar thing that I have to specify over here as well. Okay, so what I will do is I will just define some parameter here. Let's say parameter, it's a new parameter, and something like demo or so there are multiple options which are available over here. So depending upon the kind of use case I explained, then if you are having some kind of true or false or 0 1 value, then you can use boolean, then you have your integers over here. So as of now I have string, and that's it. So now you still see something, some red alerts or some red marks. So this is basically because you have to give a comma over here. So once you give your commas, because this is one key value pair, and when you're defining some other key value pair, you just have to provide a comma over here. Okay, so this is there. Now the interesting thing is that because of the extension that I have installed, it is giving me a yellow mark which says that okay, this parameter is also defined, but it is never used. And if I go to this particular part, it says that this is undefined. So you get some kind of understanding as in when you start using or once you start developing ARM templates. So you just get this particular hang that okay, this yellow mark says that okay, this is not being used, and red mark say that okay, this is undefined. So in this scenarios, yellow mark can be ignored, but red alerts are something like if you get some kind of red alert into your ARM template, which means that you won't be able to move ahead. Like you would be getting validation error as well, and you can't proceed if you are having some kind of red alerts. So what I will do is I will just replace variables with parameters over here. And once that is done, so either I can just use a default value over here, or this will also prompt the user for giving some kind of input. We'll see that particular part over here. So if I just paste it over here and I save it. So before you were not getting any kind of spaces to give some kind of inputs, but now if you see, you are getting a kind of parameter which is pre-filled, and it is having ARM demo for community 1, which is the default value already specified. But let's say that we don't want to go with default value. Let's say that we want to have something like storage account for community. Okay, this is the name that we want. And this green mark over here says that okay, this storage name is already available. But if I give some name like this one, which was not available. Okay, let's go with this name, otherwise it will give you an error again. Okay, so I will just be using this name, which says basically this green mark is not for validating whether your storage account name is available or not. This is basically validating that okay, this is a type of string that you have specified as a parameter type, and you are giving it a string only. And if you give something like this particular part, it should give you an error over here. Okay. So I just click on review and create. It is giving an error, right? So what we will do is, and you are getting this error over here as well, that storage account name must be 3 to 4 characters, and it should be a proper you should just use the numbers and lowercase. So I will be just using this particular thing, which is ideally a right one. So I'm just showing you these errors so that whenever you come across these type of errors, you are easily able to troubleshoot it. So this has now passed the validation, and I would be just clicking on create over here. And now my deployment is in progress. And it's happening over here. So now this will also get provisioned over here. And that was the demo which was covering the parameters and variables part. And now if you see, this is the storage account name which I had provided in the prompt of that parameter. Now what happens ideally, like if you are from infra team, okay, infrastructure team, and there is some other team who would be deploying or who would be utilizing this parameters, then there comes an important factor over here, which you have to define over here. Otherwise, people might get confused, like what is it for. Like if you are defining some kind of parameter A, for you can understand that okay, this parameter is for the storage account name. But other people who are just utilizing this particular template won't be having any kind of idea like what this parameter is for exactly. So what you will do is you will just have some kind of parameters over here, and I have some kind of metadata associated with the parameters. So if I just click on save over here, and then you see I get an I button over here. And if I just hover to that I button, I will get some kind of metadata saying that this is for storage account. So this basically enhances the kind of user experience, uh, which reduces again and again raising of new tickets, because ultimately what happens is like as I just now said, that you are having your infra team over here, okay, and there is a deployment team, okay. So you are the ones who are creating the ARM template, and this is the team which is utilizing this ARM template, okay. If you are just defining the ARM template in a way that you are only the one who is able to understand, that's then what will happen is that this team will basically again and again reach out to you saying that okay, if you have specified parameter A, what it is for, if you have defined parameter B, what it is for. So this basically increases the whole process. Like if you have a deadline of just deploying the resource within a span of 1 day, but you won't be able to deploy it in 1 day because you don't have a clarity like what this A parameter is for, what this B parameter is for. So in such scenarios, what happens is that you are having additional features over here which will help you to just define something, a kind of description, so that whenever somebody is using your ARM template, so he or she gets an idea by hovering through this I button that okay, this parameter is for storage account, and thereby they can just give an appropriate value and deploy the ARM template. So this is how things work with ARM template. There are multiple ARM templates over here which you can use, and you can just try out things, and you can just provision multiple resources over here. So I will just explain it over here. I may not be able to cover the demo for this. So what happens is that this is your VM. Okay, this is your virtual machine. This is like the kind of local system that you are having. It will have your disk, the hard disk, then it will be having some network card which will be there, and what else would be there? Disk is there. Like, okay, so you will be having all these resources. Let us assume this thing. Okay, but what happens is that you define some kind of directory, like first that virtual network needs to be created. Then inside that virtual network you will have your NIC card, the network card. Then you will be having your public IP. Then you will be having your private IP. Okay, so there are multiple resources which are to be created first, and then you have to deploy your compute over here, VM. So it is a kind of dependency, you can say. Okay, like this is a VM, it is dependent on public IP, or it is dependent on disk. It's something like first these resources should get created, and once these resources are being provisioned, then you can just deploy this resource. So in such scenarios, what happens is that we have something called as depends on block over here. So if you just see over here, this is just an example what I was explaining. This is a kind of NIC card, what we call as network interface, and it depends upon the virtual network, and it also depends on the public IP address. So you have something called as depends on over here, which is defined over here, through which you are referring to the above resources like the virtual network, then also the public IP address over here. So it is something like it holds on, it basically checks whether okay, this particular resource is provisioned, okay, this has provision. Then it will go to the next dependency and it will check whether the public IP is provisioned, okay, it's provisioned. Then it will say okay, all the checks have been passed, then now I will go ahead and I will just provision my network interface. So that basically resolves the dependency over here. Otherwise, if you don't define this depends on block over here and you just straight away go and just try to provision this resource, it will say okay, I know, Azure will say okay, I know network interface has to be provisioned, but do we have a virtual network, do we have a public IP address? So these are the essential dependencies, and if you don't have these essential dependencies specified over here, this whole thing will not get provisioned. So this is basically the use case of just defining the depends on over here. So that covers much of ARM template, and due to time constraint we have to stop here. I guess we have some more time with us, and you can just drop down any queries that you have related to Azure or ARM template, and I would be happy to address those queries.
Thank you, Mubin. I think it was an awesome session. I guess we don't have any doubts till now. I'm sharing your LinkedIn over the comments. If anyone have any doubt, they can reach out to you. I hope you will. Okay, just allow me a second. So, guys, here's the LinkedIn of Mubin. You can go
Yeah,
connect with him. Okay, if you have any other doubts, you can reach out to Mubin. You can reach out to Azure Developer community. We are very happy to solve all. Also, Mubin have shared the GitHub repo. If you want to go and try the hands-on, that would be awesome. Thank you, Mubin, for coming and accepting
yeah.
the Azure
Thanks a lot.
invitation.
Yeah.
And we are
Okay.
very excited to listen you again in
Yeah,
some
sure.
session. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.